Crypto Trader is proudly brought to you by Element, a full-service investment bank for the digital token capital markets.
Welcome to this week's edition of Crypto Trader, still the world's only televised cryptocurrency investment show. This week we're coming to you live from our Johannesburg studios, where we've got a live studio audience with us. These are the guys from the Johannesburg chapter of the YPO organization. These are the YPO crypto guys. Guys, welcome to our studio. Great to have you here, and please feel free not to interrupt me at any time. So speaking of crypto, we had a manic week on the crypto markets. We had Vitalik Buterin tweeting about heroin and child porn in the same tweet. We had the alt market cap running to an all-time high. We had Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash running against each other this week. And we had the feud between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash also running at an all-time high this week. Brian Kelly, are you a Bitcoin man or are you a Bitcoin Cash man?
I tend to look at Bitcoin at this point as the monetary base. I come from a currency background. So to me, Bitcoin is the monetary base, and Bitcoin Cash is something like M1 or the transactional currency. So no reason for there to be a feud at all.
So Brian, why do you think there is a feud with all that said?
This is not just a monetary revolution. This is a social revolution. So people have a lot of emotions around this. A lot of people have put a lot of volunteer hours to get these currencies to where they are, and they're very attached, and that's a good thing. So I think that the human element is coming into it. But if we take a step back from that and just say, okay, what are the use cases for all of these cryptocurrencies? And you see, you know what? There is a role for each of these currencies for both Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin.
Brian, the alt market is at all-time highs. Do you feel like the alt market is at all-time highs?
No, it's funny you mentioned that, Rand, because it does not feel like that at all. If you look at even some of what I would call the big cap alts, something like Zcash, something like that, it's still below its all-time highs. So I think a part of that is, I believe the way they're calculating it has something to do with Bitcoin Cash is considered part of the alt market, and that expansion in market cap has helped. But it certainly does not feel like, and Ethereum as well, right? Ethereum is not at all-time highs either. That's basically traded sideways for the last 6 months. So it's going to take those kind of big cap alts to get going before we feel like we're in a bull market for alts.
So speaking of big cap alts, what are your favorite big cap alts at the moment?
So right now, single favorites are the privacy coins. So Monero, Zcash, Dash to some extent, although that's had a bit of a run here. So to me, I think those are the big ones for the next month or so. Again, there are use cases for these. If you're a major financial organization and you want to send money, do you really want the whole world to see how much you're sending and to where you're sending it? So I think there is a case for these privacy coins in this ecosystem.
Brian, there were stories that came out yesterday that China may be increasing the power costs to the Chinese Bitcoin miners. What's your feeling on that? Are those rumors confirmed?
It's hard to get an actual confirmation when you're talking about news from China, but it does sound like there's going to be some kind of crackdown, might be too strong of a word, but effectively the Chinese miners have been getting essentially free energy, or very low cost energy, which is the excess energy that the energy company in the Sichuan province didn't need. It looks like that might be coming to an end. So maybe crackdown isn't the right word, maybe ban isn't the right word, but certainly a squeeze on the profits coming from China. But in general, listen, I'm all for a more centralized mining of Bitcoin. So I think in the long run, it's healthy for Bitcoin to have it diversified across the globe.
Brian, ICOs, a little bit out of favor at the moment. Are you looking at any ICOs that are coming up?
The one that I did last year that is going to be coming out in December is Cosmos. And to me, that's a really exciting one, because not only do you have the ability to create smart contracts like you do with Ethereum, but they have their inter-blockchain protocol, which basically effectively makes any blockchain infinitely scalable. So anybody can spin up a hub on the Cosmos blockchain, and that hub can represent any coin in the ecosystem. So to me, this is an essential building block for the digital economy.
So Cosmos is the one where the guys paid much earlier this year, and it's only actually listing towards the end of this year. Brian, your fund, the fund that you manage, how's your fund going?
It's been a good year. We're up a little over 2,000% for the year. So we picked a pretty good year to start a crypto fund.
Billionaires buying Bitcoin. Yep. I was looking for billionaires who are out there buying Bitcoin, and I bumped into Sir Richard Branson, who agreed to give me an interview on the world's first televised cryptocurrency investment show. Here's what he said. So the blockchain has given rise to a whole new wave of entrepreneurs. In fact, it's like a whole new way of doing business. And it's a place for mavericks. So who better to speak to about this kind of entrepreneurship than Sir Richard Branson? Sir Richard Branson, we met earlier and I couldn't shake your hand, but I will shake your hand now.
Yes.
Thank
we
you.
were in the loo, that's why you couldn't shake my hand. I was, no, thank you, not now.
And you know, you've obviously heard of Crypto Trader. It's the world's first cryptocurrency investment show. It's an honor to have you on. You're a big believer in the blockchain and how the blockchain is going to change the world. Can you give us some insights as to what it is about the blockchain that attracts you to it?
Well, I think blockchain is very smart. I have to admit that I invested in it early on, and the reason I invested in it was the amount of different uses it could be put to. I've read Hernando de Soto's books. Hernando de Soto argues that unless you can actually have interest in your home, it's very difficult for you to start a business or have any wealth created. Blockchain have gone to presidents of Egypt and other countries and said, you know, we could register every single house in your country. The 90% of the houses that the people don't actually own, they just built the houses on random bits of land. We can give them home ownership, and you can then create a revolution of businesses and people being able to start businesses from scratch.
So when you look at blockchain actually gives rise to doing business in a very decentralized way. I think for the first time in history, we can really big businesses in a collaborative way with people that maybe never even meet each other. Now you're all about business and having fun and letting people wear what they want to work. How do you think that businesses will work when sometimes the operators of the business never meet face to face?
I think it'll make businesses more efficient. Fortunately, I think airlines are still going to be needed, and that you know, people are going to need to sort of jump on a plane and actually come and socialise with each other as well. But at least they know in the background that blockchain is doing the job in an efficient way.
Are you guys investigating the blockchain and trying to apply it in your businesses?
I think different virgin businesses are looking at it in different ways, and so they should be. You know, we have Virgin Money, which is a bank in the UK. They're definitely looking at blockchain and in discussions to see how they can use it. But we also, you know, we also invest in cyber currencies as well. So, we're investors in Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of those other currencies.
So you were interviewed on Bloomberg a while back, and at the time you spoke about how positive you were about Bitcoin and how well it's working. Do you believe that Bitcoin is working as a currency, or do you believe Bitcoin is more a store of value? I
think for some people Bitcoin's used as a currency. For others, it's just a place where they can tuck away some of their net worth. In the same way they might tuck it away in gold or silver. In the last few years, they would have done a lot better to have tucked it away in Bitcoin, but we'll have to see what happens in the years to come.
What is your prediction about what happens in these crypto or in this Bitcoin and Ethereum market? At the moment, they're not regulated, and so most governments don't recognize them as currencies and commodities. Do you think that, you know, you've threatened big corporations before, but do you think that Bitcoin and Ethereum threaten governments, and how do you think governments are going to respond?
I don't think Bitcoin and Ethereum threaten governments any more than cash threatens governments or credit cards threatens governments. I mean, it's a different form of currency, and I think sensible governments should welcome it, and sensible governments, I think, do welcome it. I mean, you know, when America confiscated some bitcoins from somebody, they immediately cashed them in and took the cash. They didn't confiscate them and destroy them. So I think these currencies have now generally been accepted by governments.
Yeah, they probably should have held on to the bitcoins and not sold them so quickly. They'd probably be worth a lot more today.
In the same way that Gordon Brown, when he sold Britain's gold, should have held on to that as well. So, but I think, you're right. The American government lost a lot of money by cashing it in and not holding on to it.
So you spoke earlier about entrepreneurship, and you've spoken earlier about giving people loans may be the best start to start entrepreneurships. Now, no doubt you're familiar with the ICO mechanism or the crowdfunding mechanism for raising capital. Do you not think that's maybe a better way of raising capital than asking for loans or asking governments to create loans? You've opened yourself up to a whole world of potential investors through issuing tokens on your business. Yeah,
I think it's an excellent idea, an excellent way of people getting loans if they can persuade the crowd to invest in whatever they're doing, and I think should be encouraged. And obviously, people who put money into these things have to accept that they may lose it as well as makes the money. But but I think it's a really good way forward.
Yeah. Are you investing in any other cryptocurrencies as a group, or any other blockchain-related ventures?
The thing with Virgin is it's involved in so many different businesses. I'm not quite sure what everybody's doing these days. But all I can say in the big picture of things is I'm a great believer in blockchain and actually Bitcoin. And I think there are absolute geniuses behind these products. I wish the real guy that invented Bitcoin would step forward and be interviewed. I mean, or anyway, I would urge him when on his deathbed to at least leave behind a book about how his brain works, because he's an absolute genius. And
well, now that I've interviewed Richard Branson, I mean, it would only make sense that he comes next, because that's the last guy left.
Wherever you are, whoever you are, come along and be interviewed. But it's just mind-boggling what he achieved.
And when did you discover Bitcoin? When was the first time you heard about it?
I'm very lucky because I live on an island in the Caribbean, and some of the most interesting people in the world come and visit, and they teach me. And so it was almost definitely propping up the bar on Necker Island that I first discovered Bitcoin.
Mark, you're a hedge fund manager turned into crypto man. Tell me how that happened.
When I was at Fortress, one of my partners called me and asked me to look into this thing called Bitcoin. And having spent my life as a speculator, really trading currencies and commodities and equity indices, I quickly looked and figured, you know what, this is an amazing technology. That there were a lot of anarchists and anti-government people, libertarians, that it was going to appeal to originally, and that the Chinese were starting to buy it. And so it was literally just those simple three ideas that I said, hey, this thing is going to go higher. And so when we first bought it back in 2013, it was trading around $195. We bought Bitcoin, and it was a little bit of a lark. I said, we'll buy it. We think it'll go up. We think it's pretty interesting. And I quickly called a friend who was unemployed at the time, or underemployed, I should say, and asked him to look into it. And 2 weeks later, he called me back and he said, this is going to change the world. And so because of his enthusiasm, we bought more. It was still roughly $100, and started digging in. And, like in a lot of things in life, once you start making money at something, you start looking more closely at it, looking deeper into it. And to be fair, it was a very exciting time. It went right from 100 to 1,000. And I said, that was it. It's going to go back down. And it kind of drifted back down and kind of went dead for 2 years. If you remember, up until 15, Bitcoin had been kind of sideways. Ethereum hadn't even started. And it was a little bit of just good luck that I left Fortress, or I sometimes like to say Fortress left me. I met a guy, one of my college roommates was one of the founders of Ethereum. I went over to his office. I was wowed by the energy in it. And so I've plunged myself full bore into it ever since.
Mike, are you a Bitcoin man or a Bitcoin Cash man?
I'm a Bitcoin man. Bitcoin literally has the mantra and the use case of store of value. And right now, people are buying this as an alternative to gold, as a starting point. If you think about each of these coins as its own decentralized ecosystem with a decentralized use case, the Bitcoin use case is store of value or money. I don't think Bitcoin will be used as money anytime real soon in the developed world. Alipay works really good in China. Apple Pay and other payment systems work fine. Venmo here in the US. But as a store of value where this unbelievable networking effect is taking place, I think it's going to be very powerful.
So Mike, you did a talk at the Ethereal conference in San Francisco, and you spoke about the fact that the herd is coming. In other words, I think what you meant to say was that the institutions and all the money is going to start flowing into crypto. What gives you that idea?
We're somewhat uniquely positioned in between a 25-year institutional career and this really dynamic, young, exciting crypto community. And so here at Galaxy, that's what we're trying to position ourselves at. I know a lot of people in the big institutions. I mean, this week I was at one of the biggest banks in the world, and I spoke to their 15 most senior people, giving them a tutorial on crypto and Bitcoin. They're all looking at how they get involved. Just last night, Square, which is one of the big payment systems here in the US and globally, announced that they're going to allow people to buy and sell Bitcoin on the Square platform, which is a monster deal. And so I think you're going to see PayPal and Venmo follow. And as more and more institutions make access to the crypto ecosystem easier, you know, the viral effects continue to happen.
So today we hit a new all-time high of $220 billion in crypto. If I were to ask you to speculate, because you're a speculator at heart, speculate for me on the number at the end of 2018.
You know, 800 billion, a trillion.
So you think there's still 5x in the crypto market between now and then?
I have more than 20% of my net worth invested in crypto across various assets. B, we're building out what we hope to be, you know, one of the largest institutional merchant banks in the space. We're doing a hedge fund that's going to trade the liquid part of it, an advisory business, an ICO business, a venture business, a hard money lending business. And so we literally are hiring 2 to 3 people a week right now, taking a real bet that the market cap goes up. And I told the guys on the team, I said, listen, if in 2 years the market cap is here or lower, we're going to look foolish. And if the market cap is $1 trillion or 2 trillion or 5 trillion, we're going to look really smart. Remember, in 1999, the NASDAQ market cap got to 6 trillion before we had a correction.
The battle between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. And have no doubt, it's a huge battle. If you post something on Twitter that's for Bitcoin Cash, boy oh boy will those Bitcoin guys come and get you. So Vortex, why do you guys feel that it's a battle between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash? What's the gripe?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? It's really interesting. You know, a lot of people are actually calling Bitcoin Cash an attack, and you know, there are reasons for that. While it may not have been created as an attack, of course, it definitely was like a tool used as an attack against Bitcoin. And there's, you know, a number of reasons for that, right? They seem to have taken the name, the logo, the website. They've taken some of the hash power away. And you know, it's really interesting. Even Peter R. Risen, right, the chief scientist that was of Bitcoin Unlimited and presumably Bitcoin Cash, that says one of their main objectives was to take hash power away from Bitcoin to drive up the network congestion. So it's yeah, it's a bit of a battle out there.
But I don't understand something, and maybe you can give me clarity once and for all. So if you look at blockchain gives you the option to follow a chain until you're not so happy with what the chain is doing. And then what you do is you split the chain and you take your supporters with you. But in the process, nobody actually loses because we all got 1-for-1 Bitcoin Cash for our Bitcoin. So shouldn't you want Bitcoin Cash to succeed? Because then you'll have a Bitcoin that's valued at $7,000 today, and then you'll have a Bitcoin Cash that's valued at $1,300, which is a lot better off than where you were a week ago.
Sure, right. And so I definitely encourage people who don't want to gamble, right? People who want the least amount of risk to just keep all the forks, right? We want to just keep them all. And so that definitely is an interesting dynamic for investors to be able to say that they're going to have crypto dividends, right, coming to them. So that is definitely an interesting prospect. However, like I say, Bitcoin Cash is a tool, right? And so Bitcoin Cash was used as a weapon of attack against Bitcoin for a little while there, again, trying to steal the hash power away, trying to steal the name, the logo, and the brand. And I'm all for innovation. I love innovation. I hope that everybody creates a bunch of forks, right? And who doesn't love free money? But the problem, of course, is when the fork is not friendly, right? When it is used to attack the original chain. And that's where things, that's where I start to have problems.
Stop. Why do you say the fork was not friendly? I don't get it. Just explain to me the non-friendly part of the fork.
So just briefly, essentially what was happening here is that they installed something called an EDA, which allows the actual difficulty adjustment of the chain itself to vary. And what happens was they essentially gamed it so that it would be more profitable. Well, so they pumped the price, right? In addition to this, they pumped the price to make the miners come over to the Bitcoin Cash chain to incentivize them to do that, because the miners will just go wherever is most profitable. And so in that regard, they actually ended up taking around 30% of the hash power from Bitcoin while simultaneously running a really huge internet-wide social media defamation campaign against Bitcoin.
Whoa, slow down. You're using a lot of terms here. So first of all, if you look at the first part of your statement, that's competition, my friend. As a business, you go out and you recruit suppliers, which are the miners, and you do that by giving them high incentives to join your network, which is by giving them more Bitcoin Cash. What's wrong with that?
But you don't go and take their name and their logo and their website and then run huge defamation campaigns against them, right?
Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about defamation. Okay, how do you feel that the Bitcoin Cash guys have defamed Bitcoin?
The biggest thing really is the social media campaign that's kind of going around the internet and Twitter, Slack, Telegram. I've been seeing reports of pretty much every single social media platform at this point being used by various paid individuals to actually try to convince people that Bitcoin Cash is the only Bitcoin, is the original Bitcoin. And that, of course, is defamation. That's lying, right?
You got Bitcoin. Bitcoin has the name Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Cash has a different name, Bitcoin Cash. It's like Lara and Lara Lee. You know, it's like a different name. I mean, it just sounds ludicrous. But Vortex, we don't have much more time. I want to ask you another question. What's wrong with 8 megabyte blocks? Why not? Let's scale Bitcoin. Let's have 8 megabyte blocks. And then you know what we can do? We can put Lightning or off-chain solutions onto 8 megabyte blocks. And then we can really have this monster. What's wrong with that?
And there has been a large amount of research done on larger blocks. And basically what the research comes out to is that when we go over 4 megabyte size, we start to see nodes drop off across the world due to bandwidth issues, due to latency issues. So the blocks can't actually propagate fast enough across the planet. And what this does is it ends up further centralizing the currency. And that's the whole point of Bitcoin, right? Is a decentralized, censorship-resistant money that is not in control of any government or corporation. And so when you start chipping away at those properties, it starts to, the original audience here that really wants the censorship-resistant money starts attacking you. And so really that's the biggest thing, is that these blocks, there's no actual proof that increasing the block size is actually good for the Bitcoin or even safe. And so there are much more better ways, much more clever and better ways to optimize that we want to do, instead of a big heavy-handed approach by only changing one number in a hard fork. If we're going to do a hard fork, we are going to do some amazing things. We want to put all sorts of stuff in there and not just increase the number.
Be honest with me, my friend. Are you still holding the Bitcoin Cash that you got when the fork split? But be honest.
No, I'll be honest with you, Rand. Absolutely not. No, remember, I really believe that crypto, I really believe in speech. I believe that money is speech, and I believe that crypto is free speech. And so you really have to execute on your beliefs. You have to take a stand, and really, otherwise you're just going to be on the sidelines. And for me, taking a stand was selling my Bcash as soon as I humanly possibly could.
The battle between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. We heard the Bitcoin side of the coin, and now I've got someone who's wearing a BCH Please shirt. I can see trouble happening right here. Jake, thanks for joining us all the way from Tokyo. Nice shirt. So the Bitcoin clan say that Bitcoin Cash has hijacked Bitcoin by using the name. How do you respond to that?
I don't think anyone owns the name Bitcoin. It's a free market process, and I think Bitcoin Cash has just as much a claim to being Bitcoin, as outlined in Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, as Bitcoin Core does.
What's the big issue with increasing block sizes?
I have no idea, really. It's quite baffling. I think ultimately it comes down to control over the protocol. Some more of the reasons might sound more tinfoil hat territory. People talk about Blockstream and their sidechain products.
So explain to me what happened this weekend. The price of Bitcoin Cash went from $600 before the weekend to a high of somewhere around $2,700 and then came back down to $1,200. And that happened in about 48 hours.
It was money heading for the exits out of Bitcoin. For the first couple months that Bitcoin Cash existed, you could see there wasn't much of a correlation between the two prices. They kind of tracked each other, right? But this past weekend, you saw that money was bleeding out of BTC directly into Bitcoin Cash. They were inversely correlated. I think people were panicking. They were realizing the problems the Bitcoin chain is facing, and Bitcoin Cash is looking like a good, safe alternative right now.
So I agree with you about the prices being inversely proportional on the weekend. But if I look now, the Bitcoin Cash price is stable at around $1,300 and the Bitcoin price is back up over $7,000. Don't we all win? Because I've still got my Bitcoin and I've still got my Bitcoin Cash. So don't we all win when this happens?
Yeah, it's great. It doesn't have to be a perpetual battle between the Bitcoin Core folks and the Bitcoin Cash folks.
So the Bitcoin guys who were on the show a bit earlier said that you guys are coercing miners by giving miners an unfair or a very high reward for mining your product and that it's artificial. How do you respond?
There's nothing unfair about it. We actually do pay higher than the base block reward, but all of that money comes from the insanely high transaction fees that the users are paying. So really, it's the users who are unfairly subsidizing the miners. And actually, as a mining pool, we keep some portion of the mining fees for ourselves. We make profit. We're not paying people off. We're running a business.
Okay, last question for you, my friend. The claims that the Bitcoin guys have against the Bitcoin Cash guys is that Bitcoin Cash is actually centralized. They claim that you have a CEO and that you're not, in the true spirit of blockchain or Bitcoin, a truly decentralized organization.
The two systems are virtually identical. I mean, Bitcoin Cash forked from the same code base as Bitcoin did. As for the CEO claim, I don't know if you read Rick Falconier's document, but it was total satire, and a lot of the people bashing it very obviously did not read it. If they say it's centralized, I would like to see them point out by what metric they're saying that.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy a set of boxing gloves and I'm going to invite you into the studio and I'm going to have a Bitcoin guy here and I'm going to have a Bitcoin Cash guy here and I'm going to let you guys box it out in the studio in the coming future. Jake, thanks for joining me. Look forward to seeing you again soon, my friend. That's all we have time for here today. A round of applause to our in-studio guests from the Johannesburg chapter of the Young Presidents Organization. I hope I've been able to answer all your crypto-related questions. If you do have crypto-related questions, no matter where you are in the world, you can get me on Twitter @CryptoManRun, and I'll be available to answer all your crypto-related questions. You can also follow my Twitter for live feeds from trade conferences, blockchain events around the world. Until next week, my friends, trade well.
Crypto Trader is proudly brought to you by Element, a full-service investment bank for the digital token capital markets.